Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
What's up, everyone, and welcome. This is the Cybersecurity Weekly Review, where we take a look at all of the security events that happened in the last week. So let's jump right in and get started. This is about the T-Mobile story that I did a rant on in my daily, my new daily. So,
you know what really grinds my gears?
T-Mobile has upped the amount that they have confirmed to now 50 million users' data being stolen. According to an article on ThreatPost, T-Mobile has confirmed much of what a threat actor bragged about, which is personal data or details for tens of millions of current, former, or prospective T-Mobile customers were stolen in a huge breach of its servers. T-Mobile disclosed further details on the data breach in a post on its website, saying that the breach affects as many as 7.8 million postpaid subscribers, 850,000 prepaid subscribers, and just over 40 million past or prospective customers who've applied for credit with T-Mobile. T-Mobile revealed just last Friday that the personal data of more than 5 million additional customers was comprised in the cyber attack, bringing the total number of people impacted to over 50 million. Its investigation is ongoing, but so far, it doesn't look like financial data or credit card information or debit or other payment information was in the stolen files. That's according to T-Mobile. The wireless carrier said that it located and immediately closed the access point in its servers that it believes granted access to the attackers. Now, T-Mobile says that this is a very sophisticated attack. However, Forrester analyst Ali Mellon told ThreatPost on Wednesday that this attack wasn't exactly rocket science. According to the attackers, this was a configuration issue on an access point T-Mobile used for testing. The configuration issue made this access point publicly available on the internet, and this was not a sophisticated attack. This was not a zero-day attack. T-Mobile basically just left a gate or a door wide open for attackers, and attackers just had to find said gate. At least according to what the purported thief told cybersecurity intelligence firm Cyble, the threat actor made off with a collection of databases that total around 106 gigabytes of data, including T-Mobile's Oracle Customer Relationship Management database. Compromised payment data may not have shown up in T-Mobile's investigations, but personally identifiable information as of 1:54 last Wednesday morning, T-Mobile had ascertained that the ripped-off data included customers' first and last names, date of birth, social security numbers, and driver's license ID information for a subset of current and former postpaid customers and prospective T-Mobile customers. Now, there's enough information here to make 50 million people victims of phishing scams about their T-Mobile accounts or anything else. Your account has been breached. Click here to secure your account, or here is the link to your free 2-year credit check service, compliments of T-Mobile. All you have to do is click on one of those links or open up maybe a PDF attachment, and boom, you are a sitting duck and you are now infected. But hey, no financial information was stolen. So, I mean, on the positive side, you're probably not going to be a victim of any type of fraud, credit card fraud. Now, the telecommunications bigwig said that it first learned the attack late last week about claims that were posted on an underground forum that the threat actors had stolen over 100 million customer records and were offering 30 million for sale for the surprisingly cheap cost of 6 Bitcoin, which is 270 grand, or about 1 cent per record. According to preliminary analysis, came to the 7.8 million current T-Mobile postpaid customer accounts, then the 40 million records of former and prospective customers who had previously applied for the credit. Now, either the purported thief was lying about also getting phone numbers, account numbers, security pins, and passwords, or T-Mobile's investigations haven't yet revealed proof that they were. At any rate, the company said that none of those nor financial information were compromised in any of the purloined files of customers or prospective customers. Over the previous weekend, the threat actor who was offering to sell the records on an underground forum told Bleeping Computer and Motherboard that they'd also stolen physical addresses, unique IMEI numbers, and MIMSI numbers. The attackers told Bleeping Computer that T-Mobile's entire IMEI history database going back to 2004 was stolen. IMEI, or the International Mobile Equipment Identity, is a unique 15-digit code that precisely identifies a mobile device with a SIM card input, and the International Mobile Subscriber Identity, IMSI, is a unique number that identifies every user of a cellular network. No phone numbers, account numbers, pins, passwords, or financial information were compromised in any of the stolen records pertaining to customers or prospective customers. That may be true except for prepaid customers. They were, in fact, security pins for 850,000 prepaid customers involved in T-Mobile, in the T-Mobile hack, which they then verbally verified. Now, It's reset all the pins on the prepaid accounts and plans to notify customers right away. The company said no Metro by T-Mobile or former Sprint prepaid or Boost customers had their names or pins exposed. Finally, information from inactive prepaid accounts was compromised through prepaid billing files. There were no customer financial information, credit card information, debit or other payment information, or social security numbers contained in the active information. If you go back, this is the second attack of 2021, but it's the fifth attack since 2018 of T-Mobile. In 2018, 2.3 million subscribers' data were exposed, including names, billing zip codes, phone numbers and email addresses, account numbers, and account types, whether they're prepaid or postpaid. In 2019, about 1.26 million of T-Mobile's prepaid were affected by a breach that included names, billing address, if they were provided, phone numbers, account numbers, and the CPNI. An undetermined number in 2020 of employees and customers were affected when attackers accessed employee email accounts, some of which contained account information for T-Mobile customers, including names and addresses, phone numbers, account numbers, and more. January 2021, the wireless carrier disclosed that it detected and shut down malicious unauthorized access to some information related to T-Mobile accounts. Specifically, that data consisted of customer proprietary network information. That was the CPNI that we just saw in the previous year. Now, the data set that the FCC calls some of the most sensitive personal information that carriers and providers have about their customers. CPNI includes records of which phone numbers users called, the frequency, duration, timing of such calls, and any services purchased by the consumer, such as call waiting. T-Mobile then said that the thieves in this case lifted phone numbers, number of lines subscribed to on accounts, and in some cases, call-related information or the CPNI information. And now we have August 2021 with the current attack of could be 100 million users according to the attackers. T-Mobile has verified 50 million. We move on to patches. Internet Systems Consortium, or ISC, fixes high-severity denial of service flaw in BIND DNS software. The Internet Systems Consortium has released security updates to address a high-severity denial of service vulnerability tracked to CVE 2021-25218 that affects its BIND DNS software. The vulnerability affects only BIND 9 releases, which is 9.16.19, 9.17.16, and the release 9.16.19-S1 of the BIND supportive preview edition. ISC also provided workarounds for this vulnerability. An attacker could exploit the flaw under specific circumstances to trigger a denial of service condition by causing BIND name server's process to crash. Hence denial of service. If named attempts to respond over UDP with a response that is larger than the current effective interface maximum transmission unit, or MTU, and if response rate limiting, or RRL, is active, an assertion failure is triggered, resulting in termination of the named server process. There, it's no longer accessible, again, DOS. Now, there are two ways for named to exceed the interface MTU. There's direct configuration in name.conf file, setting max UDP size to a value larger than the interface's MTU, or there's path MTU discovery as PMTUD, informing the IP stack that it should use a smaller MTU for the interface and destination than the default max UDP size of 1232. Now, some operating systems allow packets received via other protocols to affect PMTUD values for DNS over UDP. ISC noted that the flaw can be triggered through misconfiguration or by deliberate exploitation. It can also be triggered during normal operating conditions. The US Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, has published a security advisor to warn of this vulnerability. Adobe addresses two critical vulnerabilities in Photoshop. Adobe released security updates to address two critical security vulnerabilities tracked as CVE 2021-36065 and CVE 2021-36006, affecting the popular image manipulating software Photoshop. The flaws affect versions of the software for both Windows and Mac OS. Their exploitation could lead to arbitrary code execution in the context of the current user. The flaws affect Photoshop 2020, number 21.2.10, and earlier versions from the 2020 year series, as well as Photoshop 2021, version 22.4.3, and earlier versions of the 2021 series. The CVE 2021-36065 is a heap-based buffer overflow, while the CVE 2021-36066 is an out-of-bounds write issue, both rated with CVS score of 7.8. We move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. secret terrorist watch list with 2 million records exposed online. In July this year, security discovery researcher Bob Diachenko came across a plethora of JSON records in an exposed Elasticsearch cluster that piqued his interest. The 1.9 million strong record set contained sensitive information on people, including their names, countries of citizenship, gender, date of birth, passport details, and no-fly status. The exposed server was indexed by search engines Census and Zoomeye, indicating Diachenko may not have been the only person to come across the list. The researcher told Bleeping Computer that given the nature of the exposed fields, like the passport details and no-fly indicator, it appeared to be some kind of no-fly or similar terrorist watch list. Such databases are regarded as highly sensitive in nature, considering the vital role they play in aiding national security and law enforcement tasks. The exposed server was taken down about 3 weeks later. It's not clear why it took so long or whether any unauthorized parties accessed it, and the data was on the server with a Bahrain IP address. Cloudflare says it mitigated a record-breaking 17.2 million requests per second distributed denial of service attack. Internet infrastructure company Cloudflare disclosed today that it mitigated the largest volumetric distributed denial of service attack that was recorded to date. The attack, which took place last month, targeted one of Cloudflare's customers in the financial industry. Cloudflare said that a threat actor used a botnet of more than 20,000 infected devices.
Come on! You want more? Not the whole thing.
To fling HTTP requests at the customer's network in order to consume and crash server resource. Called a volumetric distributed denial of service, these are different from classic bandwidth distributed denial of service attacks, where threat actors try to exhaust and clog up the victim's internet connection bandwidth. Instead, attackers focus on sending as many junk HTTP requests to a victim server in order to take up precious server CPU and RAM to prevent legitimate users from using targeted sites. Cloudflare said this attack peaked at 17.2 million HTTP requests per second, a figure that the company described as almost 3 times larger than any previous volumetric distributed denial of service attack that was ever reported in the public domain. Cloudflare said that while the attack peaked at 17.2 million RPSs, the threat actor kept its botnet aimed against its customer for hours, during which time it had to absorb more than 330 million junk HTTP requests. Now, Cloudflare later on says in another article that they actually can go up to 25 million HTTP requests per second. I'm not sure I would really make that information public because 17.2 million is not that far away from 25, and next time it might reach to 25 or 30 or 50 or whatever. Remote code execution flaws lurk in countless routers, Internet of Things gear, cameras using Realtek Wi-Fi module SDKs. Taiwanese chip designer Realtek has warned of 4 vulnerabilities in 3 SDKs accompanying its Wi-Fi modules, which are used in almost 200 products made by more than 5 dozen vendors. The flaws allow a remote, unauthenticated attacker to deny service, crash devices, and inject arbitrary commands. The CVEs are CVE 2021-35392, which is a Wi-Fi simple config stack buffer overflow via UPnP. CVE 2021-35393, which is a Wi-Fi simple config heap buffer overflow via SSDP. CVE 2021-35394, which is an MP daemon diagnostic tool command injection. And CVE 2021-35395, which is management web interface which has multiple vulnerabilities. The first 2 are rated high in terms of severity with 8.1 on the CVSS scale. The second 2 are rated critical severity with 9.8. Now, these flaws require an attacker to be on the same network as the device or be able to reach it over the internet to achieve successful exploitation. As such, these bugs are likely to be abused by malware on someone's PC to hijack their cable internet router and smart home gear, by miscreants to commandeer public Wi-Fi spots, and so on. Security firm IoT Inspector, based in Bad Homburg, Germany, disclosed the vulnerabilities to Realtek in May and said more than 65 hardware makers' products incorporate the Realtek RTL819XD module, which implements wireless access point functions and includes one of the vulnerable SDKs. Now, estimating conservatively, there's almost 1 million vulnerable devices that are in use, including VoIP and wireless routers, repeaters, IP cameras, and smart lighting controls. By exploiting these vulnerabilities, remote unauthenticated attackers can fully compromise the target device and execute arbitrary code with the highest level of privilege, the Biz said in its advisory. BlackBerry resisted announcing major flaw in software powering cars and hospital equipment. A flaw in software made by BlackBerry has left 200 million cars along with critical hospital and factory equipment vulnerable to hackers, and the company opted to keep it secret for months. Now, I've actually forgotten completely about BlackBerry, but they're in the news. On Tuesday, BlackBerry announced that old but still widely used versions of one of its flagship products, an operating system called QNX, contain a vulnerability that could let hackers cripple devices that use it. But other companies affected by the same flaw, dubbed Bad Alloc, went public with that news in May. Two people familiar with discussions between BlackBerry and federal cybersecurity officials, including one government employee, say the company initially denied that Bad Alloc impacted its products at all and later resisted making a public announcement even though it couldn't identify all of the customers using the software. The back and forth between BlackBerry and the government highlights a major difficulty in fending off cyber attacks on increasingly internet-connected devices ranging from robotic vacuum cleaners to wastewater plant management systems. When companies such as BlackBerry sell their software to equipment manufacturers, they rarely provide detailed records of the code that goes into the software, leaving hardware makers, their customers, and the government in the dark about where the biggest risks lie. BlackBerry became a major supplier of software for industrial equipment, including QNX, which powers everything from factory machinery and medical devices to rail equipment and components on the International Space Station. Bad Alloc could give hackers a backdoor into many of these devices, allowing bad actors to commandeer them or disrupt their operations. Now, Microsoft security researchers announced in April that they'd discovered the vulnerability and found it in a number of companies' operating systems and software. In May, many of those companies worked with the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency to publicly reveal the flaws and urge users to patch their devices. Privately, however, BlackBerry representatives told CISA earlier this year that they didn't believe Bad Alloc had impacted their products, even though CISA had concluded that it did. We move on to millions of web cameras and baby monitoring feeds are exposed. A vulnerability is lurking in numerous types of smart devices, including security cameras, DVRs, and even baby monitors that could allow an attacker to access live video and audio streams over the internet and even take full control of the gadgets remotely. What's worse, it's not limited to a single manufacturer. It shows up in a software development kit that permeates more than 83 million devices and over 1 billion connections to the internet each month. The SDK in question is ThruTech Calais, which provides a plug-and-play system for connecting smart devices with their corresponding mobile apps. The Calais platform brokers the connection between a device and its app, handles authentication, and sends commands and data back and forth. Calais offers built-in functionality to coordinate between a security camera and an app that can remotely control the camera angle. Researchers from the security firm Mandiant discovered the critical bug at the end of 2020, and they are publicly disclosing it today in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. The attacker could connect to a device at will, retrieve audio and video, and use the remote API to then do things like trigger a firmware update, change the panning angle of a camera, or reboot the device, and the user doesn't know that anything is wrong. The flaw is in the registration mechanism between the devices and their mobile applications. The researchers found that this most basic connection hinges on each device's UID, a unique Calais identifier. An attacker who learns a device's UID, which Valletta says could be obtained through a social engineering attack or by searching for web vulnerabilities of a given manufacturer, and who has some knowledge of the Calais protocol can re-register the UID and essentially hijack the connection the next time someone attempts to legitimately access the target device. The user will experience a few seconds of lag, but then everything proceeds normally from their perspective. Lojas Renner, Brazil's largest clothing store chain, was hit by a ransomware. Lojas Renner, the largest Brazilian department store clothing company, announced they suffered a ransomware attack that impacted its IT infrastructure. According to Brazilian news outlets, the company was forced to shut down all its physical stores across the country in response to the attack, but Lojas Renner denied having closed the stores and pointed out the infection only impacted its e-store. Renner operates more than 600 stores across 3 countries, under brands such as Renner, Kamikado, Yelcom, and Ashwa. According to the Brazilian blog Tecmundo, the attack against Lojas Renner was orchestrated by RansomX operators. Some experts speculated that the ransomware gang hit the company, compromising one of its IT service providers, Tivit. However, Tivit explained it has not suffered any attacks on its infrastructure. So, who knows how they got in? Mozi P2P Botnet also targets Netgear, Huawei, and ZTE devices. Microsoft researchers reported that the Mozi botnet was improved by implementing new capabilities to target network gateways manufactured by Netgear, Huawei, and ZTE. Mozi is an IoT botnet that borrows the code from Mirai variants and the GAFGit malware. It appeared on the threat landscape in late 2019. The Mozi botnet was spotted by security experts from 360 NetLab. At the time of its discovery, it was actively targeting Netgear, D-Link, and Huawei routers by probing for weak telnet passwords to compromise them. Researchers from Microsoft Security Threat Intelligence Section and Section 52 at Azure Defender for IoT have monitored a new evolution of the threat that extends the list of targets. The bot spreads by brute forcing devices online or by exploiting known unpatched vulnerabilities in the target devices. Cisco warns of server name identification data exfiltration flaw in multiple products. Cisco warned of a vulnerability in server name identification request filtering that affects multiple products: the Cisco Web Security Appliance (WSA), Cisco Firepower Threat Defense (FTD), and the Snort Detection Engine that could be exploited by an unauthenticated remote attacker to bypass filtering technology on an affected device and exfiltrate data from a compromised server. A vulnerability in server name identification request filtering of Cisco Web Security Appliance, Cisco Firepower Threat Detection, and Snort Detection Engine could allow an unauthenticated remote attacker to bypass filtering technology on an affected device and exfiltrate data from a compromised host. That's what was stated within the advisory published by Cisco. Now, according to the vendor, using SNICAT or a similar tool, a remote attacker can exfiltrate data in an SSL client hello packet because the return server hello packet from a server on the blocked list is not filtered. Once communication is established, the attacker can execute command and control attacks on a compromised host or exfiltrate the data. Cisco is investigating the issue to determine affected products. Cisco states that the following products are under active investigation to determine whether they are impacted. The products are the 1000 series integrated services routers, 4000 series ISRs, the Catalyst 8000V Edge software, Catalyst 8200 series Edge platforms, Catalyst 8300 series Edge platforms, Catalyst 8500L Edge platforms, Cloud Service Router 1000V series, Integrated Services Virtual Router, and Meraki security appliances. Staying with Cisco, Cisco will not patch critical flaw CVE 2021-34730 in EOF routers. Cisco has no plan to address a critical code execution vulnerability tracked as CVE 2021-34730 that affects small business RV110Ws, RV130s, RV130Ws, and RV215W routers. The CVE 2021-34730 flaw resides in the universal plug-and-play service of vulnerable devices. An unauthenticated attacker could trigger this issue to remotely execute arbitrary code as root or trigger a denial-of-service condition. The flaw is due to improper validation of incoming UPnP traffic received a CVSS score of 9.8. The IT giant, Cisco, recommends customers using RV110W wireless and VPN firewalls, RV130 VPN routers, RV130W wireless and multifunction VPN routers, and RV215W wireless NVPN routers to disable UPnP on both the LAN and WAN interfaces of their devices. The advisory states that the UPnP service is enabled by default on LAN interfaces and disabled by default on WAN interfaces. This vulnerability, according to Cisco, is due to improper validation of incoming UPnP traffic. An attacker could exploit this vulnerability by sending a crafted UPnP request to an affected device. A successful exploit could allow the attacker to execute arbitrary code as the root user on the underlying operating system, or cause the device to reload, resulting in the DOS condition. 637 flaws in industrial control system products were published in the first half of 2021. Industrial cybersecurity firm Clarity published its third biannual ICS Risk and Vulnerability Report that analyzes the vulnerability landscape relevant to leading automation products used across the ICS domain. The company reported that during the first half of 2021, 637 vulnerabilities affecting industrial control system products were published, affecting products from 76 vendors. The cybersecurity firm warns that more than 70% of published vulnerabilities have been assigned critical or high-severity ratings. Now, in the previous report published back in the second half of 2020, the number of vulnerabilities disclosed was 449, affecting only 59 vendors. It is interesting to note that most of the vulnerabilities disclosed in the first half of 2021, roughly 80.85%, were reported by sources external to the affected vendor. So it's not the vendor themselves, it's third-party security firms, independent experts, and academics. The analysis of the vulnerabilities disclosed for each vendor revealed that Siemens was the vendor with the most reported vulnerabilities, with 146, many of which were disclosed as part of the internal research conducted by Siemens CERT themselves. The other vendors with the highest number of flaws was Schneider Electric with 65 and Rockwell Automation with 35. Now, majority of the flaws impact products on the operations management level, or historians, or OPC servers, followed by the basic control PLC RTUs and supervisory control HMI and SCADA levels. North Korea linked InkySquid APT leverages IE exploits in recent attacks. Experts from cybersecurity firm Volexity reported that North Korea linked InkySquid Group, also known as Scarcraft, also known as App37, also known as Group 123, and also known as Reaper, leverages two Internet Explorer exploits to deliver a custom backdoor in a watering hole attack aimed at the daily North Korean South Korean online newspaper. App37 has been active since at least 2012. It mainly targeted government, defense, military, and media organizations in South Korea. The watering hole attacks on the daily NK was conducted from March 2021 until early June 2021. The use of recently patched exploits for Internet Explorer and Microsoft Edge will only work against a limited audience, reads the post published by Volexity. Attackers will still have some success, however, and have a good chance of avoiding detection based on the following attributes of their attack. Now, they use a clever disguise where they exploit the code. The exploited code is mingled amongst legitimate code, making it harder to identify. They only allow exploitable user agents access to the exploit code, making it difficult to identify at scale, such as through automated scanning of websites, and the use of innovative system custom malware, such as Blue Light, after successful exploitation using command and control server mechanisms which are unlikely to be detected by many solutions. New analysis of Diavol ransomware reinforces the link to TrickBot gang. In July, researchers from Fortinet reported that a new ransomware family tracked as Diavol might have been developed by Wizard Spider, the cybercriminal gang behind the TrickBot botnet. The TrickBot botnet was used by threat actors to spread the Ryuk and Conti ransomware families. Experts noticed similarities between Diavol and Conti threats. Unlike Conti, Diavol doesn't avoid infecting Russian victims. At the beginning of June, FortiEDR detected and halted a ransomware attack against one of the customers of the security firm. The security firm detected two suspicious files, locker.exe and locker64.dll, that at the time were not found on VirusTotal. Locker64.dll was detected as a Conti version 3 ransomware sample, while locker.exe appeared to be completely different and they dubbed it Diavol. Fortinet FortiWeb OS command injection allows takeover servers remotely. An authenticated attacker could execute arbitrary commands as the root user on the underlying system via the SAML server configuration page. Experts pointed out that the flaw could be chained with an authenticated bypass flaw like CVE 2021-29015, that could allow an attacker to deploy a persistent shell, install crypto mining software, or other malware families. The vulnerability impacts Fortinet FortiWeb versions 6.3.11 and earlier. Now, an authenticated attacker could exploit the issue to take complete control of servers running vulnerable versions of the FortiWeb WAF. The vulnerability was reported by the researcher William Vu from Rapid7. Here's a story from one of my daily rants. DAO Maker loses $7 million in DeFi exploit. DAO Maker experienced an attack where hackers have stolen funds from 5,000 plus user accounts. DAO Maker CEO Christoph Zeknon in a report highlighted that hackers stole around 7 million in USD coin from 5,251 user accounts using a smart contract exploit. This means on average, $1,250 per user were lost. The firm also pointed out that the hacker targeted high-valued accounts, as the accounts of users with $900 or less were not affected. The attacker initially got hold of 10,000 USDC and then obtained more funds through 15 additional transactions. The argument is they tried a specific contract called Strongholder Offering Contract, or SHO, and they realized how much they were getting through that contract, so they went back 15 more times to only target that contract, which relates to people who have a higher amount in their account. Liquid Exchange hacked and up to 80 million was removed. This is again another one from one of my dailies. Now, Japanese exchange Liquid Global suffered a massive hack. As per reports, hackers removed up to 80 million digital assets from the platform. The exchange shared the horrific announcement in a tweet. Thank you. They also exposed wallet addresses implicated in the breach. Moreover, Liquid Global, which has recently gained pace as a crypto exchange, has not yet confirmed how much has been taken, but still they're saying 80 million seems about a good rough estimate based on what's missing that they found so far, which are 107 bitcoins, 9 million TRXs, 11 million XRPs, and 60 million worth of Ethereum and ERC20 tokens. Other than this, there were also reports that the compromised Ethereum wallet with the roughly 60 million of Ethereum and ERC20 tokens held deposits from Celsius Network. At the moment, Liquid Exchange has suspended withdrawals and deposits. A bug in a medical startup's website put thousands of COVID-19 test results at risk. A California-based medical startup that provides COVID-19 testing across Los Angeles has pulled down a website it used to allow customers to access their test results after a customer found a vulnerability that allowed access to other people's personal information. Total Testing Solutions has 10 COVID-19 testing sites across Los Angeles and processes thousands of COVID-19 tests at workplaces, sports venues, and schools each week. When test results are ready, customers get an email with a link to a website to get the results. But one customer said they found a website vulnerability that allowed them to access other customers' information by increasing or decreasing a number in the website's address by a single digit. That allowed the customer to see other customers' names and the date of their test. The website also only requires a person's date of birth to access their COVID-19 test results, which the customer who discovered the vulnerability said wouldn't take long to brute force or simply guess. Now, although the test results website is protected by a login page that prompts the customer for their email address and password, the vulnerable part of the website that allowed the customer to change the web address and access other customers' information could be accessed directly from the web, bypassing the sign-in prompt altogether. Tokyo Marine Insurance Singapore is hit by ransomware attack. Tokyo Marine Insurance Singapore Limited, hereafter referred to as TMIS, one of Tokyo Marine Group companies in Singapore, was subject to a ransomware cyber attack. Upon a detection of the attack, TMIS immediately took necessary measures, including the isolation of the network to prevent further damages, and filed the necessary reports to local government agencies. TMIS confirmed that there is no indication of a breach of any customer information nor confidential information of the group. They have appointed an external specialized vendor to perform a third-party analysis of the systems to verify the scope of impact. TMIS also confirmed that the ransomware cyber attack exclusively affected TMIS, and there was no damage or impact on other group companies. South Florida Community Care Plan provides notice of data security incident. South Florida Community Care Plan, or CCP, in Sunrise, Florida, announced that it was taken action after becoming aware of unauthorized disclosure of certain member information. CCP is providing notice of this event to potentially impacted individuals as well as certain regulators. On June 21st, 2021, while reviewing a former employee's email account, CCP discovered that the employee sent emails containing CCP internal documents to the employee's personal email address in violation of company policy. Upon discovery, CCP launched an immediate investigation of the activity in order to determine the documents that were sent to the employee's personal email address as well as the information contained within the emails. CCP's investigation has uncovered no evidence that the employee was acting outside the scope of their employment in working with this information. Now, CCP's investigation determined that the impacted information could have included the person's name, address, date of birth, member identification number, primary care physician, diagnosis, procedure billings code, approved services, and or procedure type. Rockwood School District provides notice of ransomware incident. Rockwood School District, otherwise known as the District, provided information about a recent event that may impact the privacy of some personal data related to current and former employees and students. The confidentiality, privacy, and security of information in the District's care is one of the highest priorities, and the District takes this incident very seriously, reads their announcement. On June 17, 2021, the District discovered that certain computer systems in its network had been affected with ransomware, which prevented access to certain files on those systems. While the investigation was able to determine that certain District systems were accessed, the investigation was unable to confirm what information within those systems was actually accessed. Now, what information is involved? The information contained within the files at issue varied by individual, but contained names, addresses, social security number, date of birth, financial account information, district employee identification number, MOSIS identification number, and or student records. The district does not have any evidence that information was subject to actual or attempted misuse, but how would they know? JP Morgan Chase Bank admitted leaking sensitive data of its customers. Chase Bank has admitted to the presence of a technical bug on its online banking website and app that allowed accidental leakage of customer banking information to other customers. Personal details of Chase Bank customers, including statements, transaction lists, names, and account numbers, were potentially exposed to other Chase banking members. The issue is believed to have lasted between May 24th and July 14th this year and impacted both online banking and Chase mobile app customers who shared similar information. We learned of a technical issue here that may have mistakenly allowed another customer with similar personal information to see your account information on Chase.com or in the Chase mobile app, or receive your account statements, said the notice from Chase. It isn't immediately clear how or under what circumstances a customer would be able to see other customers' private information. The notice is also vague on whether the issue impacted a specific group, like credit card holders or personal and business banking customers, or everyone. And Chase Bank is in the process of notifying the affected individuals and providing them with free credit monitoring services for 2 years. The Brazilian National Treasury was hit with ransomware attack. The Brazilian government has released a note stating that the National Treasury has been hit with a ransomware attack last Friday. According to a statement from the Ministry of Economy, initial measures to contain the impact of the cyber attack were immediately taken. The first assessments so far have found there was no damage to the structuring systems of the National Treasury, such as the platforms relating to public debt administration. The effects of the ransomware attack are being analyzed by security specialists from the National Treasury and the Digital Government Secretariat. The federal police has also been notified. The ministry noted new information on the incident will be disclosed in a timely manner and with due transparency. We move on to other security news. First up, the FBI's warnings to Silicon Valley. China and Russia are trying to turn your employees into spies. While not as exciting as maybe a James Bond movie, the threat is very real. According to the FBI, employees are being persuaded, or more typically coerced, by foreign autocracies into stealing information or handing over login credentials. In one case, FBI Special Agent Nick Schenken worked on, Chinese government agents threatened to deny an employee's mother dialysis back in China if he didn't steal proprietary information from a large hardware software company. For the last few years, San Francisco-based Schenken has been quietly briefing venture firms, startups, academics, and tech industry groups that might be of interest to foreign actors. It's not the glamorous spy stings that form movie plots, but a subtle way of fighting espionage through education. After Protocol heard about the briefings from multiple sources, the FBI agreed to an interview about the content of the briefings and shared its framework, called the Delta Protocol, which the agency developed to distribute to startups so they can learn to protect themselves. Hacking efforts by foreign actors now routinely make headlines, and there's been a spate of indictments of individuals from ex-Apple engineers to researchers who were accused of smuggling information. In 2018, the Department of Justice formally launched the China Initiative, and FBI Director Christopher Wray called China's economic espionage and counterintelligence the greatest long-term threat to our nation's information and intellectual property and to our economic vitality in a 2020 speech. Government estimates of losses from Chinese intellectual property theft run in the hundreds of billions of dollars a year, though some critics say those numbers are a little bit inflated. Google says geofence warrants make up 1/4 of all U.S. demands. Google has published a number of geofence warrants it's historically received from U.S. authorities, providing a rare glimpse into how frequently these controversial warrants are issued. The figures reveal that Google has received thousands of geofence warrants each quarter since 2018, and at times accounted for about 1/4 of all U.S. warrants that Google receives. The data shows that the vast majority of geofence warrants are obtained by local and state authorities, with federal law enforcement accounting for just 4% of all geofence warrants served on the technology giant. According to the data, Google received 982 geofence warrants in 2018, 8,396 in 2019, 11,554 in 2020. But the figures only provide a small glimpse into the volume of warrants received and did not break down how often it pushes back or on overly broad requests. Now, geofence warrants are also known as reverse location warrants, since they seek to identify people of interest who were in the near vicinity at the time of a crime was committed. Police do this by asking a court to order Google, which stores vast amounts of location data to drive its advertising business, to turn over details of who was in a geographic area, such as a radius of a few hundred feet at a certain point in time, to help identify potential suspects. Google has long shied away from providing these figures, in part because geofence warrants are largely thought to be a unique to Google issue. Law enforcement has long known that Google stores the vast troves of location data on its users in a database called Sensor Vault. First revealed by the New York Times back in 2019, Sensor Vault is said to have the detailed location data on hundreds of millions of devices worldwide collected from users' phones when they use an Android device with location data switched on, or Google services like Google Maps or Google Photo, and even Google search results. In 2018, the Associated Press reported that Google could still collect users' locations even when the location history is paused. The U.S. Department was recently hit by a cyber attack. The U.S. State Department was recently hit by a cyber attack. The Department of Defense Cyber Command is notifying impacted individuals, White House correspondent and fill-in anchor at Fox News, Jackie Heinrich, revealed. It is unclear when the security breach was discovered, but analysts believe it took place a couple of weeks ago. The incident was also confirmed by a Reuters source, but it added that the attack did not impact the operations of the State Department. There's a new lock-file ransomware gang out there, and they use the ProxyShell and PetitPotam exploits. A new ransomware gang named Lockfile targets Microsoft Exchange servers using the recently disclosed ProxyShell vulnerabilities. The popular security expert Kevin Beaumont was one of the first researchers to report that the Lockfile operators are using the Microsoft Exchange ProxyShell and the Windows PetitPotam vulnerabilities to take over Windows domains. ProxyShell is the name of 3 vulnerabilities that could be chained by an unauthenticated remote attacker to gain code execution on Microsoft Exchange servers. The 3 vulnerabilities used in ProxyShell attackers are CV 2021-34473, pre-auth path confusion that leads to ACL bypass, CV 2021-34523, which is an elevation of privilege on Exchange PowerShell backend, and CVE 2021-31202, which is a post-auth arbitrary file write, which leads to remote code execution. The vulnerabilities are exploited remotely through Microsoft Exchange Client Access Service, running on port 443 in IIS. The vulnerabilities were discovered by security researcher Tsai Orange from DevCore, who explained that the ProxyShell attack chain targets multiple components in the Microsoft Exchange, including the Auto-Discover service, which is used by client applications to configure itself with minimal user input. US CISA releases guidance on how to prevent ransomware data breaches. Oh boy, what do they have to say? CISA recommends organizations to implement best practices included in its fact sheet to prevent cyber attacks. The list of best practices includes: maintain offline encrypted backups of data and regularly test your backups. Create, maintain, and exercise a basic cyber incident response plan, resiliency plan, and associated communications plan. Mitigate internet-facing vulnerabilities and misconfigurations to reduce the attack vector. Reduce the risk of phishing emails from reaching end users by enabling strong spam filters and implementing user awareness and training programs. Practice good cyber hygiene by using up-to-date anti-malware solutions and application allow listing. ensuring user and privileged accounts are limited, enabling multi-factor authentication, and implementing cybersecurity best practices. Now, the fact sheet also recommends organizations to protect sensitive data belonging to customers and employees. If you've watched any of my episodes on ransomware or cybersecurity, and watch them to the end, then you know this list. I do have a recommendation for the CISA. Basic security of your web platform is needed. I see you're using Drupal 9, but you should not be showing that. You shouldn't be shouting it through your source code that you're using Drupal 9. I mean, sure, I could see that you're using Drupal from right here, your style sheets, because you're using sites default files, CSS, blah, blah, blah. But even there, you should be using a CDN. Or when I didn't even get into use of jQuery, but who knows? Maybe you want to give me a call about these things. Where I live, I'm sure. Threat actors hacked US Census Bureau in 2020 by exploiting a Citrix flaw. A report published by the U.S. Office of Inspector General revealed that threat actors breached the servers of U.S. Census Bureau on January 11, 2020, exploiting an unpatched Citrix ADC zero-day flaw. The servers were used to provide the Bureau with remote access capabilities for its enterprise staff to access the production, development, and lab networks. The report states that the servers did not provide access to 2020 decennial census networks. This means that the attacker did not interfere with the results of the census. The exploit was partially successful in that the attacker modified user account data on the systems to prepare for remote code execution. However, the attacker's attempts to maintain access to the system by creating a backdoor into the affected servers were unsuccessful. That's what the report stated, published by the Office of Inspector General. Now, the flaw was disclosed by Citrix in December 2019. The experts explained that it could be exploited by attackers to access company networks. Well, CVE 2019-19781 vulnerability was discovered by Mikhail Klyuchnikov from Positive Technologies, and in January 2020, Citrix announced permanent fixes for this remote code execution vulnerability. Hamburg's Data Protection Agency states that using Zoom violates GDPR. The German State's Data Protection Agency, DPA, warns that the Senate Chancellor's use of the popular video conferencing tool violates the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation. The DPA is concerned by the transfer of user data to the US for processing. The DPA's concern follows a landmark ruling, which is Schrems 2, by Europe's top court last summer, which invalidated a flagship data transfer arrangement between the EU and the US, Privacy Shield, finding U.S. surveillance law to be incompatible with EU privacy rights, and that's stated by Yahoo News. Multiple European DPA agencies are investigating how U.S.-based digital services manage data of EU citizens and if they transfer data to the U.S. for processing purposes. In the Hamburg case, the DPA issued a public warning because the body was not able to respond to the privacy concerns raised by EU privacy watchdogs. The German agency states that the use of Zoom by the public body violated the EU GDPR. Colonial Pipeline discloses data breach after the May ransomware attack. Colonial Pipeline has started notifying more than 5,000 people that had their personal information compromised after a ransomware attack that took place in May. No way! Get out! Really? Colonial Pipeline was hacked? Yep. Alright, I'm kidding. I'm being sarcastic here. But if you have not seen yet my episode on that attack, there's a link above, and there's one pinned in the comment section below. The Colonial Pipeline facility in Pelham, Alabama was hit by a cybersecurity attack. Its operators were forced to shut down and its systems. The pipeline allows carrying 2.5 million barrels of refined gasoline and jet fuel each day up the East Coast from Texas to New York. Now, it covers about 45% of the East Coast fuel supplies. Colonial Pipeline sent out a notification letter to the Maine Attorney General's office saying that 5,810 people were impacted in the attack. Exposed data includes names, birthdates, contact information, driver's license information, social security numbers, government-issued ID, such as a military ID or a tax ID, and health-related information, including health insurance information. A job ad published by the UK's Ministry of Defence revealed a secret hacking squad. The existence of a secret SAS mobile hack squad named Mob5 and under the control of the Computer Network Operations Exploitation was revealed by a job ad published by the UK's Ministry of Defence on an external website reported by Alan Turnbull of Secret Bases. The UK Ministry of Defence is looking for an extraordinarily talented electronics engineer to hire for its secretive unit located in Hereford. The MOD is offering a salary of $33,000 to work alongside some of the best scientists and engineers within defense, and will be tasked with delivering prototype solutions directly to soldiers and officers of a unique and specialized military unit. Mob 5 was described in gushing terms and with incredible detail, even naming the military leader, a lieutenant colonel in the Royal Corps of Signals, who was awarded the MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours List 2013 when he was a major. His email address and phone number were also listed in the advert, reported secret bases. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe and smash the bell. I'll see you on the very next episode. Take care.